Betrayed by my wife, revenge on my best friend, a shocking story. The rhythmic ticking of the clock on the mahogany desk was the only sound in the dimly lit office. Mark Reynolds sat in his chair, eyes glued to the spreadsheet on his computer screen, but his mind was far from work. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, unmoving, his thoughts swirling with an unease he couldn't quite place. He checked his phone for what must have been the 10th time in the last hour. No messages, no missed calls, nothing. Amanda always sent a text when she got home, just a simple, made it back. Love you. But tonight? Silence. Mark sighed, rubbing his temples. It was probably nothing. Maybe she'd fallen asleep early. Maybe she was out with friends and forgot. But the whisper of doubt in the back of his mind refused to be silenced. He forced himself to focus, but the unease gnawed at him, slow and insidious. Something about Amanda had felt off lately. A change too subtle to name, yet too significant to ignore. She laughed a little less. She held him a little looser. And then there were the late nights, the urgent work calls, the sudden interest in fitness when she'd never cared before. Mark shook his head. He was overthinking. Amanda loved him. She always had. They had built a life together, a home filled with laughter and love. But then why did it feel like she was slipping away? A soft ding broke the silence. His phone screen lit up with a new message. Amanda, hey, just got home. Exhausted. Going to bed. Love you. Something about the message felt distant. The kind of forced, automatic response someone sent when they wanted to avoid a conversation. Mark hesitated before typing back. Love you too. He stared at the screen for a moment longer, then opened his laptop and clicked on their shared security system app. Just to be sure, he scrolled to the front door footage and hit play. The video loaded, showing a grainy black and white image of their driveway. His stomach dropped. The timestamp read 11:27 p.m., just 2 minutes before her text. But Amanda wasn't alone. A sleek black car was parked at the curb, engine still running. The passenger door opened, and Amanda stepped out. The security camera wasn't high definition, but it was clear enough. She wasn't in her usual work attire. Instead, she wore a short, elegant dress, the kind she only wore on special occasions, the kind she hadn't worn for him in a long time. Then, the driver stepped out. Mark's breath caught in his throat. A man, tall, confident, familiar. Josh, his oldest friend. Mark's grip on the phone tightened until his knuckles turned white. He watched as Amanda turned back toward Josh, her lips moving in words Mark couldn't hear. Then she smiled, soft, intimate, the kind of smile that once belonged to him. And then Josh reached for her, his hand resting on the small of her back in a way that sent a surge of cold fury through Mark's veins. Amanda didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned in. The screen went dark as the footage ended, but Mark didn't need to see anymore. His hands trembled as he set the phone down, his heartbeat roaring in his ears like a war drum. His world had just collapsed in a single moment. And he was going to make them pay. The hum of Mark's car engine filled the quiet street as he pulled into his driveway, the headlights slicing through the early evening darkness. It had been a long day at work, an exhausting blur of meetings, reports, and polite conversations that barely registered in his mind. His thoughts had been elsewhere, tangled in the growing unease that had settled deep in his chest over the past few weeks. Something was wrong. He couldn't explain in logical terms, but the feeling was there, an invisible weight pressing on his shoulders, whispering that his life was not as perfect as he once believed. Mark stepped out of the car, his fingers tightening around his briefcase handle as he approached the front door. He hesitated before unlocking it, taking a slow breath. Maybe he was just being paranoid. Maybe the stress of work and the monotony of routine were playing tricks on his mind. Still, that feeling remained. He pushed the door open. The house was dimly lit, the warm glow of lamps casting long shadows across the wooden floor. A faint scent of Amanda's perfume lingered in the air, a soft floral fragrance that used to bring him comfort, but now made his stomach twist. Amanda, he called out, his voice steady. No answer. His eyes flickered to the kitchen. The sink was empty. No dishes. The table was clean, except for a single wine glass with a faint red stain at the bottom. Odd. Amanda always had dinner ready by now, or at least some sign that she had eaten. But there was no second plate, just the glass. Mark's pulse quickened as he walked further inside, his eyes scanning the room for anything out of place. Then he noticed something, her phone face down on the coffee table. Amanda never left her phone unattended. She was always texting, always checking social media, always glued to the screen. Yet, here it was, sitting there as if abandoned in a hurry. A flicker of unease curled in his gut. Mark glanced toward the staircase. Was she upstairs? In the shower? Asleep? A quiet beep startled him. His own phone vibrated in his pocket. He pulled it out, unlocking the screen with a flick of his thumb. A new email. At first, he nearly dismissed it. Probably just word junk, but then he saw the subject line. Your wife is lying to you. His breath caught in his throat. The sender's address was untraceable, a string of meaningless letters and numbers. No name, no indication of who had sent it. His heart pounded as he hesitated for only a second before tapping the message open. Inside was a single sentence and an attachment. She isn't who you think she is. Look closer. A cold shiver ran down Mark's spine. His thumb hovered over the attachment, dread curling in his stomach. He pressed it. A photo loaded onto the screen. It was grainy, taken from a distance, but unmistakable. Amanda. Amanda, sitting at an outdoor cafe. Her head was tilted slightly, her lips curved into a smile. The kind of smile that used to belong to him. But she wasn't alone. Across from her sat Josh, Mark's oldest friend, his best man at their wedding, a man he had trusted. They were leaning in close, Amanda's hand resting on Josh's arm, their eyes locked in a way that made Mark's blood run cold. Mark clenched his jaw, forcing himself to breathe. It could be innocent, he told himself, just a friendly conversation. But the way she looked at Josh, the softness in her expression, the slight tilt of her head, wasn't the way a woman looked at a friend. His mind raced, 1,000 memories flashing through his thoughts like a broken film reel. The late nights, the unexplained absences, the sudden shift in Amanda's behavior, the cracks he had ignored. His grip tightened around the phone. Who had sent this? And why? Mark's pulse thundered as he looked back toward the staircase. Amanda was hiding something. And now, he was going to find out exactly what it was. The morning light crept through the blinds, stretching long fingers across Mark's desk. His office was a mess, papers strewn across the surface, an empty whiskey glass next to his laptop, and the remnants of a sleepless night carved into his face. His mind refused to rest. Amanda's betrayal was a storm that refused to pass. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw them, her and Josh, laughing, touching, whispering in the dark. His best friend, his wife. It was a truth that dug into his soul like glass shards, cutting him open every time he breathed. But there was something else now, something that made his pulse quicken with both fear and anticipation. The letter. It had arrived the night before, slipped under his door with no name, no return address, just his name written in bold, precise handwriting. At first, he thought it was a joke, but as his fingers unfolded the paper, his heart slammed against his ribs. If you want the truth, look deeper. This goes beyond your wife. No signature, no clue as to who had sent it, just those haunting words. Mark read it over and over, dissecting every letter, every curve of the ink. His gut twisted. Was this some cruel game? Or had he only scratched the surface of something far darker? His mind raced. Who could have sent this? Someone who knew about Amanda and Josh. Someone watching from the shadows, waiting for him to uncover whatever truth they hinted at? He pulled out his phone, hesitating for a moment before dialing. Hey, Dan, he said as his old friend picked up. I need a favor. Dan was a private investigator, ex-cop, sharp as a blade, and one of the few people Mark still trusted. Mark, Dan's voice was gruff. You sound like hell. I feel worse. What's going on? Mark hesitated. He hadn't told anyone the full extent of what was happening. But this letter changed things. I think Amanda's affair is part of something bigger, he said finally. And I need your help figuring out what. There was silence on the other end. Then Dan let out a slow breath. Come to my office in an hour, he said, and bring the letter. An hour later, Mark walked into Dan's office, a small but efficient space tucked away in the city. The blinds were half closed, the room filled with the scent of old coffee and paperwork. Dan, a man in his early 40s with tired eyes and a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, gestured for Mark to sit. Let's see it, he said. Mark slid the letter across the desk. Dan studied it, his fingers tracing the edges like a detective examining a crime scene. No address, no sender, no date, he murmured. He flipped it over. Standard printer paper. But this handwriting. Mark leaned in. What about it? Dan's brow furrowed. It's too perfect. This isn't natural handwriting. It was either traced or written by someone trying to disguise their style. Mark's jaw tightened. So whoever sent this doesn't want me to know who they are. Exactly, Dan said. The question is why? Mark exhaled sharply. That's what I need you to find out. Dan nodded. I'll run it through my system. Check the ink, compare the handwriting to databases, see if I can track anything down. Mark stood, his body tense. And Dan, if this does go deeper, I need to know everything. Dan met his gaze. You got it. As Mark stepped out into the cold city air, the letter burned in his mind. Someone wanted him to dig. And he was about to. Hard. Mark sat at his kitchen table, his fingers drumming against the cold wood. His coffee had long gone cold, but he hadn't noticed. His mind was still replaying the moment from a night before. The flickering streetlight, the sound of distant thunder, and a mysterious envelope that had appeared at his doorstep like an omen. It sat in front of him now, a plain white rectangle with no return address. Just his name, Mark Carter, written in black ink. Something about it unsettled him. With a deep breath, he slid a finger under the seal and tore it open. A single sheet of paper slipped out, folded neatly, as if whoever had written it took their time. He unfolded it, eyes scanning the words in tight, deliberate handwriting. Mark, she's lying to you. Josh isn't just your friend. He's her lover. Don't believe me? Go to the Silver Crest Hotel, room 214, tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Mark's heartbeat thundered in his ears. His grip on the letter tightened, crumpling the edges. His eyes darted to the bottom of the page. No signature, no hint of who had sent it. His first instinct was disbelief. Amanda? No, impossible. He wanted to laugh, to brush it off as some sick joke, but a creeping sense of unease slithered through him. He couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in his gut. The late-night texts Amanda quickly hid, the sudden girls' nights out that never used to be part of her routine, the way Josh had been different lately. Could it be true? He needed proof. A storm brewing. The next evening, rain poured in relentless sheets as Mark sat in his car, parked just down the street from the Silver Crest Hotel. His hands clenched the steering wheel, his breath shallow. He could still turn back. He could throw the letter away, pretend he never received it. But something inside him wouldn't let him walk away. At 7:58 p.m., he stepped out of his car, pulling his jacket tightly around him as the rain soaked through his clothes. He moved quickly, keeping his head down, avoiding the gaze of the hotel clerk as he slipped past the front desk and into the hallway leading to the rooms. The numbers on the doors blurred together as his pulse pounded in his head. 208, 210, 212, and then 214. He stopped. The world around him seemed to fade. Only the steady hum of his own breath filled the silence. Mark hesitated, pressing his palm flat against the door, as if it could somehow reveal the truth before he saw it with his own eyes. His heart hammered against his ribs. Then, with a deep breath, he crouched low, pressing his ear against the door. Voices. A woman's soft, familiar laugh. A man's deep murmur. And then, words that sent a white-hot bolt of rage through Mark's veins. Amanda's voice. God, Josh. I hate lying to him, but I can't stop. Being with you feels too right. Mark's fingers curled into fists. His chest tightened. The truth hit him like a freight train. Amanda wasn't just betraying him. She was in love with Josh. He had been a fool. A blind, trusting fool. The breaking point, a rush of adrenaline surged through him. He wanted to burst through the door, to confront them, to make them see what they had done to him. But something held him back. Not yet. Storming in now wouldn't be enough. They would deny it, twist it, make it seem like something it wasn't. No, he needed to be smarter. A plan started forming in his mind. He would gather evidence. He would make sure Amanda had no way to lie her way out of this. He would expose both of them. And when the moment was right, he would make them pay. As Mark turned and walked away, the rage in his heart burned hotter than ever. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. Mark sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. His heart pounded in his chest as he replayed the contents of the letter over and over in his mind. Your wife is not who you think she is. Follow her tonight. You'll see the truth for yourself. The words felt like a curse, haunting him with their sinister implications. He had tried to ignore it, tried to dismiss it as a cruel prank from someone who wanted to mess with his head. But deep down, something gnawed at him, a dark, gut-wrenching suspicion that refused to be silenced. Amanda had been distant lately, her laughter forced, her phone clutched a little too tightly. The late-night texts, the unexplained absences, the smell of cologne that wasn't his. Now, as the sky deepened into twilight, Mark sat outside their house, watching, waiting. Amanda had told him she was heading out for a girls' night. He wanted to believe her. God, he needed to believe her. But the letter had planted a seed of doubt, and that doubt had already taken root. At 7:42 p.m., the front door opened. Amanda stepped out, dressed in a sleek black dress he hadn't seen before, hugging her curves in a way that made his stomach churn. Her hair was curled, her makeup flawless, more effort than she ever put into their usual date nights. Mark's jaw clenched. She was stunning, but it wasn't for him. She got into her car, and Mark started his engine a second later, keeping his headlights off as he tailed her from safe distance. The city lights flickered past as he followed her through streets he knew well, until she turned onto a road that made his blood run cold. She wasn't heading to a restaurant. She wasn't meeting friends. She was heading to a hotel. Mark's grip on the wheel tightened. A sickening weight settled in his gut as he pulled into the parking lot, his mind screaming at him to turn back, to stop before he saw something he couldn't unsee. But his feet moved on their own, carrying him across the pavement, toward the lobby, toward the painful truth. Through the glass doors, he saw her. She was in the arms of another man. Not just any man. Josh, his oldest friend, his best man at their wedding, his brother in all but blood. Mark's world cracked apart. Every moment they had shared, every laugh, every late-night drink, every promise of loyalty, shattered in an instant. He watched as Amanda placed a hand on Josh's chest, whispering something in his ear that made him smile in a way that Mark hadn't seen in years. The air left Mark's lungs. His vision blurred at the edges, fury and heartbreak colliding like a storm inside him. He wanted to burst through the doors, to scream, to demand answers. But then he remembered the letter. Someone wanted him to see this. Why? And just like that, the rage in his veins turned cold. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a setup. And Mark was about to find out exactly who was pulling the strings. The morning air carried a strange stillness, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Mark sat at the dining table, an untouched cup of coffee growing cold beside him. The weight of betrayal still crushed his chest like a vice. But today, something was different. Today, he had received the letter. It had arrived in an unmarked white envelope, slipped under his door in the dead of night. No return address, no handwriting he recognized, just his name. Mark. His pulse quickened as he ran his thumb over the seal, hesitating. Was this another cruel twist in the nightmare he had been living? A confession? A warning? He had no way of knowing until he tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of thick, cream-colored paper. The message was typed, the words striking against the stark background like a dagger piercing flesh. Mark, you don't know me, but I know the truth. I know what Amanda has done. I know about Josh. But there's more. She has secrets you haven't even begun to uncover. If you want a full story, meet me at Pier 27. Midnight. Come alone. Mark read the words again, his mind racing. His heart pounded against his ribs as a storm of emotions clashed inside him. Suspicion, anger, curiosity. Who had sent this? A friend? A stranger? Someone who had been watching from the shadows, waiting for the right moment? He clenched his jaw. The last time he had trusted blindly, he had been stabbed in the back by his own wife. This could be a trap, but if there was even a chance that he could finally get the full truth, he had to take it. The decision. The hours dragged by like a slow-moving funeral procession. Mark paced his apartment, the letter clutched in his hand, reading and rereading it as if the ink would rearrange itself into clearer answers. His instincts screamed at him. This wasn't normal. People didn't just leave anonymous letters like this unless they had something to hide. But so did Amanda. That thought solidified his resolve. By the time night fell, he was ready. Dressed in dark clothes, he slipped his Glock into the waistband of his jeans. A precaution, nothing more. His breath was steady, his mind sharp. He had no idea what he was walking into, but he wouldn't be a fool. The clock struck 11:45 p.m. when he left the house. Pier 27, the meeting. The docks were nearly deserted, save for the occasional rustling of rats and the distant hum of cargo ships out at sea. The cold wind carried the scent of salt and rust, chilling his skin as he approached the meeting spot. A single, flickering streetlight cast long, jagged shadows across the cracked pavement. Then he saw it. A figure stood at the end of the pier, draped in a long coat, their face obscured by the darkness. Mark's grip tightened around the letter in his pocket. He approached cautiously, stopping a few feet away. "You're late," the figure said, their voice low and rough. Mark ignored the remark. "Who are you?" The stranger took a step closer, and as the light hit their face, Mark felt a jolt of recognition, though he couldn't quite place where he had seen them before. "I'm someone who wants to see Amanda pay for what she's done." Mark's fists clenched. "And what exactly has she done that I don't already know?" The stranger exhaled slowly, reaching into their coat. Mark tensed, his hand inching toward his gun. But instead of a weapon, the stranger pulled out a small USB drive. "Take this," they said, holding it out. "It has everything. Proof that Amanda and Josh's affair was only the beginning." Mark hesitated before snatching it from their hand. "Why are you helping me?" The stranger smirked. "Let's just say, I have my own reasons." Before Mark could press further, the stranger turned and disappeared into the darkness, leaving only the scent of cigarette smoke in their wake. Mark stood there for a long moment, staring at the USB in his palm. Whatever was on this drive had the power to change everything. And he was ready. Mark sat in his dimly lit study, the single desk lamp casting long shadows across the room. The letter lay before him, its edges slightly curled from the sweat of his fingertips. His heart pounded in his chest as he read the words again, his mind racing to make sense of the message that had upended his already chaotic world. "If you want the truth, follow the address. Midnight. Come alone." The cryptic note had arrived that morning, tucked inside an unmarked envelope, slipped under his door while he was in the shower. There was no sender's name, no indication of who had sent it. Just an address, an abandoned motel on the outskirts of town. Mark's gut twisted. He had spent weeks uncovering Amanda's betrayal, the affair with Josh poisoning every memory he had of their marriage. But this letter suggested something even deeper, something hidden beneath the surface of lies he had only just begun to peel away. Who else knew about Amanda's deception? And what more was there to uncover? The clock on the wall ticked closer to midnight. His grip tightened on the note as he grabbed his keys and a small handgun from his desk drawer. He wasn't taking any chances. The Motel of Shadows. The neon sign of the Hillcrest Motel flickered weakly as Mark pulled into the cracked asphalt parking lot. The place had clearly been abandoned for years. Windows boarded up, paint peeling, a rusted-out car sitting lifeless in the corner. The air smelled of mildew and decay, and the only sound was the faint hum of a nearby street lamp. Mark stepped out of his car, every nerve in his body alert. His footsteps crunched against gravel as he approached room 6, the same number scrawled hastily on the back of the letter. His fingers trembled as he reached for the handle. Unlocked. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room with stained walls and tattered furniture. A single lamp flickered on the nightstand, and there, sitting at the edge of the bed, was a man Mark hadn't seen in years. A ghost from the past, Nathaniel Carter. Mark's breath hitched in his throat. Nathaniel had been his closest friend years ago, back when they were young, ambitious, and chasing dreams that now felt like distant illusions. But Nathaniel had vanished after a scandal at his company, leaving behind nothing but rumors and unanswered questions. "What the hell are you doing here?" Mark demanded, fists clenching. Nathaniel smirked, tapping a cigarette against the nightstand. "I should be asking you the same thing." Mark's patience was razor thin. "Did you send a letter?" Nathaniel exhaled a long breath, nodding. "Yeah, figured it was time you knew the whole truth about your wife." Mark's jaw tightened. "I already know. She's been screwing my best friend behind my back." Nathaniel chuckled darkly. "That's just the tip of the iceberg, my friend." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Amanda and Josh didn't just betray you. They set you up." The words hit Mark like a sledgehammer. "Set me up for what?" Nathaniel reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope, tossing it onto the bed. Mark hesitated before picking it up. As he opened it, his stomach dropped. Inside were bank statements, offshore accounts, wire transfers, documents all linked to Mark's name. Large sums of money had been moved through shell companies, implicating him in fraud and embezzlement. "This isn't mine," Mark whispered, his hands shaking. "I know," Nathaniel said grimly. "But Amanda and Josh made sure it looked like it was. They've been planning this for years. The affair? That was just part of it. They needed a fall guy, and you were perfect. The loyal husband, the loving fool who'd never see it coming." Mark's world spun. This wasn't just about infidelity. It was a goddamn conspiracy. His knees weakened, and he dropped onto the bed. Why would they do this? Nathaniel sighed. "Josh has powerful connections. Amanda was the perfect bait. They set you up to take the fall for their crimes. Mark, if this evidence lands in the wrong hands, you'll be looking at prison time." Mark swallowed hard. His rage was a wildfire now, burning through every inch of his soul. He had thought the worst pain was discovering his wife's betrayal. He had been wrong. This was war. Nathaniel stood, placing a reassuring hand on Mark's shoulder. "You're not alone in this. I know how to take them down." Mark clenched his fists, his jaw set like stone. "Tell me what I need to do." The storm had truly begun. The dim glow of the table lamp barely illuminated the single sheet of paper in Mark's trembling hands. His pulse thundered in his ears as he read the words again, trying to convince himself that he wasn't imagining things. "If you want the truth about Amanda, meet me at the old dock behind Lakeview Tavern. Midnight. Come alone." There was no name, no signature, just those chilling words scrawled in jagged handwriting. Mark swallowed hard. His thoughts spun wildly. Who had sent this? And how much did they know? Amanda was upstairs, oblivious to the storm raging inside him. For weeks, he had been piecing together her betrayal like a broken mirror, every shard cutting deeper into his soul. And now, just when he thought he had nothing left to lose, this anonymous letter arrived like a match tossed on a gasoline. He tucked the letter into his jacket pocket, took a deep breath, and checked the time. 11:42 p.m. 15 minutes later, he was on the road, the cold night air slicing through the open car window. His grip on the steering wheel was tight, knuckles white. The road to Lakeview Tavern was nearly deserted, winding through the outskirts of town like a snake slithering through the dark. By the time he reached the abandoned dock, it was exactly midnight. The place was silent, except for the gentle lapping of water against the wooden planks. A faint mist rolled over the lake, giving the night an eerie, almost surreal atmosphere. Mark stepped forward cautiously, eyes scanning the shadows. He had expected someone waiting for him, but the dock was empty, just the sound of water. Then he heard it, a soft rustling behind him. He spun around, heart hammering. A figure stepped out from the darkness. A man, face half hidden under the hood of a worn leather jacket. His posture was tense, like a coiled spring ready to snap. "You got my letter," the man said, voice low and rough. "Who the hell are you?" Mark demanded. The man exhaled, pulling back his hood, revealing a face lined with exhaustion and something else, something haunted. "My name's Daniel," he said, "and I know what Amanda's been hiding from you." Mark's breath caught. "You know about the affair?" Daniel gave a bitter laugh. "It's bigger than an affair." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a USB drive, holding it out. "Everything you need to know is on here." Mark hesitated, then grabbed the drive. His fingers were ice cold. "What is this?" Daniel's eyes darkened. "Proof. Amanda and Josh, they didn't just betray you. They set you up." Mark's world tilted. "Set me up for what?" Daniel took a step closer. "They've been moving money, your money, through hidden accounts, framing you for fraud. If you hadn't caught on, you'd be the one taking the fall, not them." Mark felt like the ground had been yanked out from under him. His chest tightened. "Why are you telling me this?" Daniel looked away for a moment, jaw clenched. When he spoke, his voice was laced with quiet rage. "Because Amanda did the same thing to me." Mark's stomach twisted. "She what?" Daniel nodded. "She ruined my life. I lost everything, my job, my reputation. She's a master manipulator, Mark. And Josh, he's in on it. This isn't just a betrayal. It's a setup." Mark's hands curled into fists. He had suspected Amanda was hiding more than just an affair, but this was worse than he ever imagined. "What do I do with this?" he asked, holding up the USB. Daniel's eyes locked onto his. "You bring them down." A cold wind swept across the dock. The water rippled, black and endless. Mark exhaled slowly. His rage had found a new purpose. Amanda and Josh thought they had one. They had no idea what was coming for them. The clock on Mark's desk ticked away, each second scraping against his nerves like a rusted blade. The letter lay in front of him, its edges curled slightly, as if mocking him. He had read it a dozen times, memorizing each line, each word, each veiled warning. "If you want the truth, meet me tomorrow at midnight. Come alone." No name, no signature, no hint of who had written it. The weight of the past few weeks pressed down on him. Amanda's betrayal, Josh's smug deceit, the lies, the humiliation. It had all led to this moment. Mark had never been a violent man, but something dark had taken root inside him, an unrelenting hunger for justice. Tomorrow night, midnight. Whoever had sent this letter held answers, and Mark was ready to get them. The meeting place. The abandoned dock reeked of salt water and rust. Moonlight slashed through the night, casting jagged shadows across the cracked pavement. Mark's breath came slow and controlled, though his heart pounded beneath his ribs. He waited. Then footsteps. A figure emerged from the darkness, cloaked in a long coat, their face hidden beneath the brim of a hat. Mark tensed. "You came," the stranger said, voice low and smooth. "Who are you?" Mark's fingers curled into fists. The figure chuckled. "Someone who knows exactly what your wife and Josh have been up to, and someone who wants to see them suffer just as much as you do." Mark's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" The stranger took a step closer. "Let's just say, Amanda and Josh aren't the only ones with secrets. But if you want the full truth, you'll need to play along." "Play along." Mark's jaw tightened. "This is a game, Mark. A game of revenge. And if you play it right, you won't just get even. You'll destroy them." A slow, sinister grin crept across the stranger's face. And just like that, the deadly game began. The rain drummed steadily against the windshield as Mark parked a block away from Josh's house. He sat in silence, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. The air inside the car was thick with tension, a suffocating mix of anger, anticipation, and the taste of impending justice. It had taken weeks to get here, to this very moment. The breadcrumbs he had been following had led him to the darkest corners of truth, revealing secrets that made his blood run cold. Amanda's betrayal was one thing, but Josh's involvement in something far more sinister had turned this into more than a personal vendetta. Mark wasn't just dealing with an affair anymore. He was staring into the abyss of crime, deceit, and murder. Tonight, the reckoning would begin. Setting the bait. Mark had spent the last few days orchestrating his plan. It had to be perfect, meticulous, and foolproof. He had uncovered just enough about Josh's illegal dealings to know that one wrong move could put him in serious danger. But he also knew Josh's weakness, greed. A burner phone buzzed in Mark's pocket. It was a text message from an anonymous number, the bait he had carefully prepared. Anonymous. The cops know about the shipment. You're compromised. Meet me at the warehouse in an hour or it all burns. Josh would take the bait. He had to. The warehouse Mark had chosen was an abandoned storage facility on the outskirts of town. Isolated, dark, and the perfect stage for what was to come. Taking a deep breath, Mark started the engine and pulled onto the slick, rain-swept roads. The meeting in the shadows. The warehouse loomed in the distance, its rusted metal doors creaking in the wind. Mark parked his car in the shadows and stepped out, the cold night air biting at his skin. He had positioned himself strategically, hidden in the dark corners of the lot, waiting. Minutes ticked by, then headlights cut through the mist. A sleek black SUV rolled to a stop, and Josh stepped out, his movements cautious, his eyes scanning the area like a predator sensing a trap. Mark watched from the shadows as Josh pulled out his phone, dialing a number. "Where the hell are you?" Josh's voice was sharp, impatient. Mark smirked. "Showtime." He took a deep breath and stepped into the dim glow of the warehouse lights. "I'm right here, Josh." Josh spun around, his eyes widening in shock. Mark, his expression flickered between confusion and something else, fear. Mark took slow, deliberate steps forward, his boots crunching against the gravel. "You look surprised," he said, voice calm but edged with venom. "Were you expecting someone else?" Josh's jaw clenched. "What the hell is this? You sent me that text." Mark tilted his head. "Of course. I needed to get you here. We need to talk." Josh scoffed, but there was an unease in his stance. "You're wasting your time, man. Go home." Mark's smile didn't waver. "Oh, I don't think so." He reached into his pocket, pulling out his phone, and with a single tap, the audio recording played. Josh's voice, clear as day. "That shipment needs to move fast. If the cops find out, we're all screwed." Josh's face paled, his hands curled into fists. "Where the hell did you get that?" Mark took another step closer, now inches away from him. "You really should be more careful about who you trust, Josh." Josh's breathing turned shallow. He glanced toward his SUV, considering his escape. But Mark was ready. "You're not going anywhere," Mark said. "You have two choices, confess, or this recording finds its way to the police." Josh's mask cracked, the cool and composed facade crumbling into something desperate. "You don't know who you're messing with, Mark." Mark smirked. "Actually, I do, and that's why you should be afraid." A tense silence filled the space between them. The storm outside raged on, thunder rolling in the distance. Josh took a shaky breath. "What do you want?" Mark leaned in, voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "I want justice, and I want you to pay." Josh stared at him, realization dawning in his eyes. "You're not going to the cops, are you?" Mark only smiled. The trap was set. The game was just beginning. And Josh had no idea what was coming next. The storm outside mirrored the war raging inside Mark. Lightning streaked across the sky, illuminating his reflection in the window, a man he barely recognized anymore. The weight of betrayal had forged him into something colder, more calculating. Amanda and Josh had stolen everything from him: his trust, his peace, his love. But tonight, that would change. Tonight, Mark would set the pieces in motion for his final move: a web of lies and truths. He sat in his car outside the restaurant where Amanda and Josh were having dinner. He had chosen this place carefully, an upscale spot with dim lighting and soft jazz, a place for lovers to hide in plain sight. Through the rain-streaked window, he saw them at a corner booth. Amanda leaned in, her fingers grazing Josh's wrist as she laughed at something he said. Josh smirked, his confidence sickening. Mark's grip tightened on his phone. A single text. That's all it would take. It's done. You know what to do. Across town, Claire, his newfound ally and Amanda's so-called best friend, read the message. She was inside Amanda and Josh's secret apartment, the one they thought no one knew about. Claire had been hesitant at first, but when Mark had shown her the proof, the texts, the photos, the bank statements, she had turned. Betrayal cut both ways after all. She opened Josh's laptop, inserted the USB drive, and watched as the files uploaded. Bank fraud, embezzlement, a fake charity fund that Amanda had helped him cover up. Their love affair wasn't their only secret. Josh was a criminal, and Amanda was complicit. The unraveling begins. Back at the restaurant, Mark stepped inside, his heart steady, his mind razor-sharp. He wasn't here to fight. He was here to watch them crumble. He made his way to their table. The moment Amanda looked up and saw him, her face drained of color. Josh stiffened. "Mark, what are you doing here?" Amanda's voice trembled slightly, a flicker of guilt in her eyes. Mark smiled. "Just wanted to say hi. Oh, and to let you know, you might want to check your emails." Josh frowned and reached for his phone. Amanda did the same. Within seconds, their faces shifted. First confusion, then panic. Claire had forwarded everything. Every stolen dollar, every fraudulent deal. And not just to them. To their employers, to their families, to the authorities. Amanda's hand clamped over her mouth. Josh bolted upright, nearly knocking over his wine glass. "You son of a—" Mark raised a hand, cutting him off. "Save it. I didn't ruin your life, Josh. You did." Sirens wailed in the distance. The walls of their perfect little world were closing in. Josh scrambled for an escape, but there was none. Amanda looked at Mark, tears welling in her eyes. "Please, Mark, I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Mark exhaled slowly, finally feeling the weight lift. "Neither did I, Amanda. But here we are." As he walked away, the storm outside had passed, leaving only the fresh scent of rain and the promise of something new. The trap was set, and they had walked right into it. The night was thick with tension. A storm rumbled in the distance, its deep growls resonating through the city like an omen. Mark sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The letter in his jacket pocket burned against his chest like a brand. One last reminder of the treachery he had uncovered. It was time. Across the street, Amanda's house loomed in the dim glow of the street lamp. His former home, the place where love had turned to lies. Tonight, it wouldn't be just another confrontation. Tonight, everything would come to a head. Taking a deep breath, Mark stepped out of the car, his boots crunching against the gravel as he moved toward the house. His heart pounded in rhythm with the thunder overhead. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but now that it was here, it felt surreal. With a swift motion, he unlocked the door using the spare key he still had. It was poetic. Amanda had taken everything from him, but she had forgotten to change the locks. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of Amanda's perfume, a cruel reminder of the woman he had once loved. He moved through the house like a shadow, his every step calculated. From upstairs, he could hear the soft murmur of voices. Not alone. Mark's pulse quickened. He had expected Amanda to be with Josh. It was why he had come. But hearing it, knowing it was happening just above him, ignited a fury deep in his gut. He ascended the stairs quietly, each step precise, controlled. When he reached the bedroom door, he didn't hesitate. He pushed it open. And there they were. Amanda and Josh froze, tangled in the sheets like criminals caught in the act. Their eyes widened in horror as they registered his presence. Mark, Amanda started, scrambling to cover herself. Josh cursed under his breath, sitting up as if preparing for a fight. Mark raised a hand. Don't. Just don't. His voice was calm. Too calm. Amanda's eyes darted to the nightstand, her phone. Mark smirked. Go ahead. Call the police. Tell them what? That your husband found out the truth. Silence. Mark reached into his jacket and pulled out the letter that had changed everything. He tossed it onto the bed between them. Read it. Amanda hesitated, then picked it up with trembling fingers. As her eyes scanned the page, her face drained of color. Josh frowned. What is that? Mark turned to him. Proof. Amanda swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. Who sent this? A friend, Mark said, his eyes never leaving hers. Someone who thought I deserved to know the truth. Josh snatched the letter from Amanda's hands and read it quickly. His face contorted in rage. This is bullshit. Mark chuckled, a hollow sound. Is it? Because it lines up perfectly with everything else I found. The hidden accounts, the deleted messages, the secret meetings. He took a step closer. Tell me, Josh, was it worth it? Betraying your best friend. Josh set his jaw. It's not that simple, Mark. Mark scoffed. Oh, it's exactly that simple. You made your choices. Now, you live with them. Amanda's voice cracked. Mark, please. We don't. Mark's expression hardened. You don't get to beg for forgiveness now. A sharp gust of wind rattled the windows. The storm was closing in. Mark took one last look at Amanda, the woman he had built a life with, the woman who had torn it apart without a second thought. And then at Josh, the man he had once trusted with everything. You two deserve each other, he said coldly. Enjoy it. With that, he turned and walked out, leaving them in stunned silence. As he stepped into the storm, the rain mixing with the heat of his rage, he felt something he hadn't in a long time. Freedom. And the night wasn't over yet. There was still one last thing left to do. The night was thick with tension, the air charged with a storm that hadn't yet arrived. Rain threatened the clouds above, dark and looming, mirroring the chaos that was about to unfold. Mark stood in the shadows outside the lavish hotel where Amanda and Josh were meeting, his heart pounding with anticipation. The weight of everything, the betrayal, the lies, the pain, pressed down on him like a vice. Inside, Amanda and Josh sat in the dimly lit bar, laughing over their drinks, oblivious to the disaster that was closing in on them. Mark watched them through the glass, his grip tightening around the small envelope in his hand, the final piece of the puzzle. The bartender set down another round for the pair, their fingers grazing as Amanda leaned in, whispering something that made Josh smirk. Mark's stomach twisted in revulsion, but he forced himself to stay composed. He had played his cards right so far. Now it was time to end this. With measured steps, he walked through the grand entrance of the hotel, his presence unnoticed in the sea of guests. His pulse hammered in his ears, but his face remained unreadable. He had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times, every word, every move calculated. As he approached their table, Amanda's laughter died in her throat. Josh turned his head, his cocky smirk vanishing the instant he saw Mark's expression. Mark! Amanda's voice was barely above a whisper, a mix of shock and guilt flashing across her face. Mark placed the envelope gently on the table between them. Open it. Josh hesitated, his eyes darting between Amanda and Mark. But Mark didn't waver. He simply watched, waiting, knowing what was coming next. With shaky hands, Amanda pulled out the contents, a series of photographs, documents, and a single USB drive. Her breath hitched as her eyes scanned through them. Pictures of her and Josh, evidence of stolen money, bank transfers, emails exposing their entire scheme. Josh paled, his bravado crumbling as he snatched a paper from Amanda's trembling fingers. His jaw clenched. Where the hell did you get this? Mark leaned forward, his voice calm but laced with venom. You thought you could ruin me, take everything I built, destroy my life, and just walk away. He let out a humorless chuckle. You underestimated me. Amanda's hand flew to her mouth, her face losing all color. Mark, please. Please what? Mark interrupted, his eyes burning into hers. Please forgive you? Let this all slide? After what you did? He shook his head. No, Amanda. There's no coming back from this. Josh scoffed, attempting to mask his fear with arrogance. So what, Mark? You have some dirt on us. Big deal. You think this will ruin us? Mark smirked, pulling out his phone. It already has. He tapped the screen, and within seconds, the sound of notifications going off filled the room. Amanda grabbed her phone, her face contorting in horror as she read the flood of messages, emails, and news alerts exposing their affair, their fraud, their lies. Josh's phone buzzed violently on the table, the screen lighting up with calls and messages from investors, colleagues, and friends. His face twisted in panic. You son of... He lunged forward, but Mark was faster. With a swift move, he grabbed Josh's wrist and twisted it back, forcing him into the chair. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Mark warned, his voice low, lethal. You've already lost everything. Don't make it worse. Amanda was shaking, her mascara running as she stared at the wreckage of her life unfolding before her. Mark, you don't have to do this. Mark's expression hardened. I didn't have to, Amanda, but you gave me no choice. He exhaled sharply, stepping back. Enjoy the downfall. You both deserve it. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving them in stunned silence. The weight that had once suffocated him lifted with every step he took toward the exit. The storm outside had finally broken, rain pouring down in sheets as Mark stepped onto the sidewalk. But for the first time in a long time, he felt free. Tomorrow, the world would know the truth. And he would finally be able to move on. The night was still, too still. Mark stood in the dimly lit study, the weight of the past months pressing against his chest like an iron fist. The documents lay before him. The final signatures on his divorce, the last remnants of Amanda's deceitful empire crumbling into dust. His fingers hovered over the ink, as if signing would seal something deeper than a legal agreement, an unspoken promise to himself. He inhaled deeply. The scent of old books, whiskey, and faint cigar smoke clung to the air. It was ironic, really. This room, once a place where he and Amanda planned their future, had now become the stage for their final undoing. A slow, bitter smile curled on his lips. How did we end up here, Amanda? She sat across from him, her once mesmerizing blue eyes hollowed with exhaustion. No more crocodile tears. No more desperate pleas. Just silence. You got what you wanted, she murmured, her voice devoid of its usual manipulation. Are you happy now? Mark let out a low chuckle. Happy? No, Amanda. But I am free. She looked away, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for a glass of wine. Josh is in ruins, she muttered. Did you really have to destroy him too? Mark's jaw tightened. He destroyed himself the moment he touched what wasn't his. Josh had lost everything. His business, his marriage, his reputation. The whispers followed him like vultures, picking at the remnants of a life he once flaunted so arrogantly. Amanda exhaled, staring at the swirling red liquid in her glass. I never thought it would end like this. Neither did I, Mark admitted, his tone laced with finality. But betrayal comes with a price. You of all people should know that. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but then she stopped. Maybe she finally understood. Maybe for the first time, she saw the weight of what she had done. Or maybe she was just too exhausted to fight anymore. Mark reached for the pen and signed the final page. With one swift motion, he closed a folder and pushed it across the table. It's done. Amanda stared at the document as if it were a death sentence. And in some ways, it was. The life they had built, the lies, the love, the memories, was officially over. Mark stood, buttoning his jacket. The burden on his shoulders felt lighter. He had won. He had taken back control. And now, He was walking away from the betrayal, the pain, the anger. As he stepped toward the door, Amanda called his name softly. Mark! He paused, but didn't turn. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? He let the question hang in the air for a moment, then finally replied, his voice steady. I don't need to forgive you, Amanda. I just need to forget you. And with that, he walked out, the weight of his past dissolving with every step. The night was still, but for the first time in months, Mark felt at peace.